First, I want to welcome to the show Samaire Armstrong. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I was trying my best not to bury your name even after we spoke about it off the air.
You did really well.
um, First off, I want to thank you for coming on. How are you today? Let's just talk about that first.
Yeah, I'm great. I feel super empowered and really liberated for finally being able to use my voice without fear.
Absolutely understandable. First question for you. How has the quarantine been for you? Like it's been a long process and it's been a hard process. So how has that been
Yeah,
like for you? How's it been like with the kids and stuff like that?
sure.
So
Yeah, of course it's presented its conflicts. I was raised in a manner of which where the importance of adapting was a primary key to existing. And my dad always had this phrase that was be comfortable with it, with the uncomfortable. And I also sort of, my favorite types of movies were like zombie apocalyptic movies. So when the quarantine hit, I was like, oh crap, like this is what we've been waiting for, and then it really set in and I was like, oh God, what did I call into our existence? Like did I do this? But that being said, what I found was the most challenging thing. What I always anticipated in an apocalyptic moment was the survival of the fittest in terms of like physical. But what I found was more than that. That was revealed was a mental challenge,
absolutely.
right? A challenge of spirit and mentality to persevere versus a challenge of like hunter gathering,
Absolutely.
and that was a hard transition. I'm sure everyone can relate to, but the interesting thing I found out was like everything I had ever been concerned about, like how will we survive, people, how will we pay for something, or like all the natural survival instincts suddenly seemed that, or not so suddenly, but revealed to be a little bit more insignificant in terms of fear versus reality. So the reality is, at the end of the day, more often than not, we're okay with what we have, even if it's far less than what we thought it was supposed to be. So
Absolutely.
I don't know, for me, I feel like it's been a very empowering experience in faith, and not in a traditional, like rigid religious sense, but in terms of like faith in the universe and faith in having a purpose. And I inherently believe, or I've trained myself to believe that everything will always be okay,
For
even
sure.
when it's not. And so I've got to see firsthand how that's been proven to be true.
Absolutely. It's one of those things where it's like this is kind of a slow down moment. Obviously, it's been a longer than a moment for us, you know what I mean? But it's
Exactly.
about appreciating the little things in life that
Yes.
normally most times we don't appreciate,
Right.
family, spending
Oh,
time with our friends, you know what I mean? Like
100%.
not having that right now is something. It's like I miss the old just it's football season, I'm gonna go to like a bar and maybe watch a
Right.
couple football games, drink a
Right.
couple
Right.
drinks, and
Right.
and it's like that is kind of taken away from you, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. No, I don't want to interrupt you. The fan on my computer is going off. Is that going to be an issue?
No, no, we're good right now. We're good.
Okay, good. Okay. Yeah, and I think maybe some people will look at me and say, "Well, of course she has nothing to worry about. She's a wealthy white woman." And that's actually, yeah, I am white, but I'm not like what people would assume is wealthy. You know what I mean? I have I have worked in the industry, and unfortunately, due to naivety on my part and also poor business management, like I didn't hold on to a lot of the money that I earned during the majority of the time that I earned actually a decent amount of living. And so I've gone on to utilize other skill sets of mine and tools to then continue to keep my life afloat. And I think that's the whole point is like, no, it's not an easy cop out. I've got it easy. Like I don't have like a bank full of cash in my closet. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
But
ma'am.
that doesn't,
For sure.
and a lot of people don't. And a lot of people can still prevail and be happy because worth is not dependent on bank account price. And I think that's the beauty of what hopefully people, and I do think it is happening, have been awoken to during this experience. The time with your children, like you say, the time going hiking. I've never had so much time to do wonderful things that, I've always wanted to do. Watch TV. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, slow down and
dive
watch
deep
something you've
into
been
the
wanting to watch.
blacklist. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think it was one of those moments where we were confronted with a fear that seemed like would end the world in a lot of ways. It's been used and manipulated to do that, but also in a personal sense, like I can prevail.
for sure. So, someone in your kind of work, what has been your go-to to kind of stay creative in the moment? You know what I mean? It's hard to,
It
if
is,
you're at home a lot, it's hard to stay creative and to dive into different things. So,
yeah.
how have you helped yourself try to be creative at
Um,
this time?
Actually, that's so funny you say that because I think so many people are probably like, I have all this time. I can finally do what I want to do. And for whatever reason, creatively speaking, I have been able to produce absolutely nothing. And I'm someone who's like either making music or painting or writing but during this period, anytime I attempted to try to create something, it just was like it felt so inauthentic and just it hurt. It hurt internally. So I finally came to peace where I was like, okay, I'm something's being revealed to me to not push this and focus on something else. Because I think for me, a lot of times creativity is a form of distraction in the most amazing way, right?
For
But
sure.
but I'm finally able to. It's like if you're on the go, 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 go all the time, you're like athletic, you're doing all this stuff and just go, go, go. And then you break your leg and you're suddenly challenged by having to sit still and be with yourself in your mind. There's a whole lot of lessons to be learned in that experience. And that I felt like I was able to acknowledge, like, okay, this isn't the moment to do that for me. And maybe other people are, I've seen a lot of people like some like put stuff out and it was like, damn, that's good. And I think a lot of other people, also can. I've talked to writers and directors, and they're like, I just don't have it in me. And I think that's okay. There's
I
something else to look at than, just creating.
Absolutely, absolutely. Obviously, you've been in the news the last couple of days. Whether it was on Instagram, whether it's on Fox News and stuff like that. You recently came out with your stance that you're voting for Trump.
Right.
I guess my question to you is, what made you finally sit down and say, you know what, we're a couple
Yeah.
months away from the election.
Hmm.
Why now did you decide to come out and speak out?
Why now? The one of the beautiful things that happened during, COVID was the time to focus on what was going on in front of us that we would generally just like maybe like, oh, that's weird, got to get back to work. So in that process of just sitting and watching and observing, the things that had been repeating in my head throughout, actually decades was the insanity or like the politics of the political world, right? Really started to feel dangerous to me. It's the same tactics, but where it's heading is a lot more dangerous than it ever has been before. I'm very familiar with communism, socialism, and I'm also familiar with the idea of people surrendering to something because it's the easier way, but not realizing, what they're giving up by doing so. So if this was any old, and this we've had other elections where I didn't find it worth speaking up. But this one in particular is very important because what's at stake is globalism and communism and our freedom. And nobody's looking at that. I shouldn't say nobody. A lot of people are, but a lot of the people who are like, you're an idiot, you're a racist. Like they have no idea why I'm doing this. And I've had really smart people try to tell me how far off and wrong I was about it. But, I think what I hope more than anything is that people will see by my coming out, I've never been say like a controversial person publicly. I've never tried to like interject my opinion into anything. I've never tried to like unnecessarily get attention or you know what I mean? I'm pretty easygoing when it
Absolutely.
comes to that stuff. So my speaking out, I hope has some weight to it by what I am quote unquote like risking. You know what I mean?
For sure.
I think had I been shouting from the rooftops like Alyssa Milano has been for a while, then it'd be easy to dismiss what I'm saying. But because I haven't, there's a moment to be like, wait, why is she saying something now? And so what happened was nobody. Okay, so the last, especially 2016, Trump was being elected or got elected, and there was this narrative storytelling going around that any conservative who votes for him is a racist, is a bigot, anti-LGBTQ. And I happen to know a lot of conservatives, a lot of Republicans who just aren't that, and they, as a group, I would say anyone that disagreed with the far left suddenly became a target. So you don't even have to be a full red Republican. You could literally be in the middle and be like, wait, I'm not sure about what you're saying. Suddenly you're a racist too, And so they're in this moment, like talking about the silent majority, it isn't just a sea of red. It's a combination of the both, because there's something happening over here and we're like, hey, can we just discuss this? And they're like, racist, like shame, time to, no more work for you. And so that was a tactic I saw happening. And the mob, as it were, is what would be sent to these people. And the mob doesn't scare me. Not the Italian mob. Italian mob would probably scare me. The radical left mob doesn't scare me, because I understand what they're going to do. They're going to try to discredit me as a human being. They're going to try to hurt my feelings, because they operate on feelings. So don't you say that, because that's not a safe word. It's weaponized. That hurts me. And yet they'll like cause explosives and destruction, actual like physical, tangible chaos. And somehow that makes everything okay. I won't be bullied into a way of behaving based on some, I hate to say it, but a group of people who lack responsibility, intellectual thought, logical thought process, critical thought process, and most importantly, group thought. I won't adhere to it. I won't surrender
Absolutely.
to it. And then even with this BLM came out saying that, they attacked this idea of individualism, saying that was a characteristic of white supremacy. And it's funny, these lies and myths that are created are created in, woven in is the rebuttal that we will inevitably have. If you say this, or if you disagree with this, you are a white supremacist, right? So if I speak out at all, then I'm a white supremacist. So my fear is supposed to keep me from speaking my mouth.
Right.
But there's no logic in it. It doesn't make sense. So this left wants us to play into this idea of like white supremacy ruling our world, and there's police brutality all up the charts, which isn't true, and don't mind about other types of crime, white on black crime, black on black crime. So let's not look like that, even though the numbers far succeed the numbers of police crime. Let's just not look at reality. Let's just stay onto what our group is talking about and work within that world. Well, I've never agreed with that world, so I'm not going to live to placate or pretend with you, especially
Right.
at the cost of our great nation. And I think so many people feel the same way, but also have just been so busy. No one has the time to take on a whole mob right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
trying to survive.
For sure.
And I feel too that the Hollywood, and I mean, there's some great people in Hollywood, obviously, and they're scared to speak out. But the large majority of Hollywood, I would say, because I haven't heard from them, like this is an assumption that based my information is based on everyone who came out and supported, say, like Hillary, who's obviously an evil human being. So like, I just don't think there's a lot of weight to Hollywood right now, and the things that they've said and the things they've implemented, and it doesn't mean anything. So my losing any potential opportunities within
Right.
that business, I've lost nothing at all if I have in fact lost it, because what I'm fighting for is all of our freedom to speak at the absurdity of what's going on, like intellectual people having a conversation, not like maniacs raging
For sure.
because they don't get their way.
I feel like for me personally, it's like it whether you agree or disagree politically, the conversations are good to have, right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
You and I don't have to agree politically, but we
Right.
can have a conversation about what you agree with, what you disagree with.
Right.
And for me personally, that's something if you go into, this is my favorite thing to say, if you go into an argument with the preconceived notion that you're right,
Yeah.
you're not going to come out and learn anything, right? You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right. Hmm.
Because you can vote one way, you can vote another way, you can vote both ways. You know what I mean?
Right.
I've voted
Right.
Democrat, I voted
You
Republican. I've
sure?
told you that
Sure.
off the air,
Yeah.
and we talked about that. So it's about having the conversation. That's why I wanted to talk to you today, is have the
Yeah.
conversation with you, kind of get your
Right.
mind frame, because you had to think about it, calculating, think about this behind your,
Yes.
for you especially,
I.
you know what I mean? For me,
Yeah.
it's like I'm a guy with, a couple hundred followers on Twitter. So if I come out and say
Yeah.
anything pro this, pro that, then it's
Yeah.
it's okay. For you,
Right.
you could lose work, fans, family, friends.
Well.
It's there's a story behind it. Obviously, you have the strong. You came out really strong, and I commend you for coming out and speaking your mind, whether anybody agrees or disagrees. It's really there. It's your thought process
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So you came out strong against the BLM movement. I guess my comment to you would be on the backside of that is, what do you say to somebody that says, all right, you said this about the BLM movement, why think that you're a racist? What would you say to them?
Oh, they if they accuse me of
Right, that's
being
what I'm saying.
right.
So they're
Right.
saying, all right,
Yeah.
so obviously, if you come out against a movement that you're coming,
Right.
as you have said,
Yeah.
you came out against the
Yeah.
Lives Matter.
Okay.
So what
So
would you say to those
there's a
individuals?
there's a thing called, so that's rational thought, right? That's rational thought, and then there's logical thought. So rational thought or associative thought is like, this happened here and this happened here. That must mean this, you know? The logical thought is the actions that I've taken, the interests that I've put into people, the my history, would not reflect logically my being a racist. So my coming out with such a bold statement, which I was quite frankly shocked that it blew up the way it did, was I was full on BLM support. I saw the George Floyd video. I started to look into the
The George
injustice.
Floyd video is awful, awful.
Awful, awful.
Yeah.
And, we saw a piece of it too at the beginning. You know what I mean? We didn't see the whole thing. We didn't get the whole story. I didn't get the whole story. And I reacted. I reacted immediately. I jumped into the work. I started listening to anti-racism courses. I like did, book work and writing work. And I shut up and listened as we were instructed as white women. And I went to protests. I donated. I shared information. I was full on in. And after a moment, I realized I was in this manic state of responding by emotion, not through logical thought. And I hadn't looked at the numbers. In fact, I had heard the numbers, but I was like, I'll just conveniently overlook those numbers. The numbers being police brutality, the numbers of actual police shootings of unarmed Black men and women. And I selectively chose to just ignore that for now because I needed to fight for what was right. But I spoke to a friend, an investigative reporter named Carlos Flores. He's in Venezuela. And he said to me, Samira, what's happening is BLM is a terrorist organization. They're Marxists. Well, I had no idea what this meant. So I started to do some digging. It turned out in 2015, BLM, Opal Tomati, the leader of BLM, one of the founding three leaders, actually went into Venezuela, which is the last remaining, or one of the last communist active, right,
Right.
countries, in
For sure.
show of their support. They went over, they intervened with the U.S. in open letters saying, leave these people alone. Nicolas Maduro, who is the dictator of a drug trafficking and terrorist regime, he's got these people covered. Mind you, the citizens are currently eating their dogs because they're so poor in a country that has more oil than Saudi Arabia. Why the hell would BLM get involved and show their support for such an evil man? So then you start to reveal the behind the curtain. They come out saying they're Marxists. There's actual destruction happening on our streets. They're dismantling the police. It was really easy to then put together the puzzle and say, okay, well, that this is what that is. We're essentially at war right now, and everyone else is like, well, but Black people matter. Hell yes, Black people matter. That's why I'm saying something. More Black people are dying in the protests than actual police brutality in a month. Do you know what I mean? So we're being manipulated, and there's plenty of information that's online that shows what the tactics of Marxists actually are, and also how it's used as an agenda to reach socialism. And socialism is controlled by the state. Controlled by the state ends very dangerously with millions of people dead in most countries when it happens. It doesn't work. It's a bad idea. So when you get to the bottom of that understanding, it's really easy to say, hey, this is not okay, especially if no one else is, and my
For sure.
intention wasn't to be the voice for the silent majority. It was really to start to sort of like casually drop these ideas in at least my followers' minds, saying, hey, look at this. It's okay to be a patriot. It's okay to be proud of America. On 4th of July, I was embarrassed to celebrate it because I thought we were awful people as Americans. Do you know what I mean?
I understand.
But to recreate the narrative and say, it's okay to stand for the national anthem. It's okay to be against Marxism. It's okay to be in support of Black lives and Black community, but not Black Lives Matter organization. It's okay to be for equality and also be a Republican or a conservative or an independent. You don't have to be a leftist to care about these things.
Right.
So I think the reason it resonated is because most people are like you, like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, of course. And so that's really what happened, and why I feel so confident. People keep writing me like, are you okay? I honestly couldn't feel any better. This is the first time in 20 years that I've been able to truly be authentic with who I'm presenting myself as. I think
Absolutely.
so many of us have been in our lives like, oh, don't say that. That'll upset that person. Don't do that. That will, PC has gone to a level of insanity that's controlling us into silence.
Absolutely. There's something freeing about speaking out for what you believe in.
Yes.
And obviously it's regardless of the sides. If somebody speaks out on this side and is
Yeah,
pro
good
Black
for
Lives
him.
Matter, they
Yeah,
feel great. It's exactly. So I
right.
guess my last question on this particular
Mhm.
matter for me would be, my question is, how do you think we fix the social unrest of America right now? Like, and I know we can't
Yeah,
fix it ourselves. We're having
sure,
a
sure.
conversation, obviously,
Yeah.
but in your
Well, I
head,
mean,
where do you think do we start?
yeah. So this right here, the conversation reveals everything. So my initial sort of like, as you were saying, did you say tactic, how I thought it out, or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
calculated it, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So my thinking was, okay, I'll put this out. Obviously, I'm gonna get hit Slack.
for sure.
Usually what happens when you hit Slack, people come at you on Instagram with a lot of exclamation points and caps locks and whatever. And I said, and in my head, I'm gonna try and have a conversation with these people. We don't have to agree. I don't have to convince them that of my perception why it's better, even though I think it is. But you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I don't think I want to learn from them, and we'll have a mutual exchange and understanding to see why this is going on, because that's not happening.
for sure.
So what I found was, more often than not, when I was having these dialogues, I actually started making friends with people who totally opposed my thinking at first, or people who misinterpreted something I say. It turns out a lot of our values are the exact same. We care, and that my speaking out against Black Lives Matter was intended, or is intended, to help the Black community, not to put them down, right? And when they see that, the conversation's like so cool and filled with love and warmth. And, well, what about this? Well, okay, let me show you this piece of information. This is what I got over here. Oh, you're right. That's weird. Like, why did he say that? Gosh, he's such a jackass. You know what I mean? Like,
For
just
sure.
this dialogue, and not so much a us versus them thing, which I have to be careful of, because a lot of the times I'm like, the left, you know what I mean?
For sure.
And
Absolutely.
the left isn't a solid. It's the left nor the right is a solid, and people's different opinions vary. Um, so that's the first step. I do think with police, no way in hell should it be defunded. Nobody's even talking about right now that there are first responders, a first line of defense. If terrorist attack happens, we grew up, probably you, I don't know how old you are, but you probably grew up around the same time as me. In before 9/11, we went through a series of bombings, and that's their duty. That's what they sign up for. Social workers can't show up to a terrible situation. ISIS right now is recollecting themselves in North Africa. They've threatened the West, and nobody's talking about it. And here we are, to the rest of the world, in absolute dispute with one another, a wide open target.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
better training, more time, more community I don't even know what you would describe it as, but interaction with the community. I think, and also there's these numbers going around saying that Black underserved communities are actually want police there. They want even better police there. So, bringing those, don't burn the whole goddamn system down when something there can be built on. And I know I've talked to these policemen. They want it to be better too. They want more training. They want more interaction. They care about their communities.
Yeah, I think that not to. I think we need more people that are on the ground on both
yes,
sides,
yes,
going through this stuff,
right,
making the things change. Right? You know what I
right,
mean? It's like when you work for a company, you have so many people that tell you, "All right, this is how we're going to do it," but this person's never done that before, so their chain of
right,
thinking
right,
is
right, right.
not going to. They're what they're correcting is not even what's wrong with the problem.
That
Right?
it. That it. They don't have the experience to understand
Right.
what they're walking into.
Yeah, and that's I think that's part of the problem with the foundation of where we come from. You know what I mean? When the laws were written, they weren't written with a lot of different people, obviously not women in mind, not,
Mhm,
black people in mind and stuff like that. We have got to have the conversation because you and
mhm,
I can have difference of opinions on certain things,
mhm,
but
mhm.
open dialogue I think could help this next generation of
Yes.
individuals,
Yeah.
and understand it's not about the hate. It's not about it's about actually having the conversation.
Right.
It's about, like you said, I commend you for having the conversation with other individuals that don't think at the same time frame as you are.
Right.
You're open-minded, and that's what a lot of people are. Because there's some things that you've said, I don't
Right.
agree with some of the things you
Right.
said, but it's okay.
Right.
I'm not gonna disrespect you. I'm not gonna. I
Right.
asked you to come on my show.
Right.
I asked
Right.
you to come on my show.
Right.
But that's the
Right.
thing. And for me, there's a lot that has to change, and
Mhm.
we understand that. The conversations need to happen. More
Uh-huh.
people that are on the ground, right?
Yes.
Like you said you spoke to cops, and cops said they
Right.
want more training.
Right.
That's something
Right.
that needs to happen, right? The
Yes.
people
Yeah.
that need to listen to the cops need to
Yeah.
listen to the other side of the fence and say the black
Right.
people where they feel the oppression, they
Right.
feel like they
Right.
can't get out and stuff like that. They need to have that people need to listen to them. Everybody,
Yes.
that's the thing. Stop
Yes.
talking
Yes.
and
Yes.
start listening. You
Yes.
know what I mean? And
Asking questions. I think the spirit of the universe is in the moment of conversation between two people who don't agree,
absolutely,
who are
absolutely,
open to learning,
absolutely.
and like anything, it's an organic process. So if it's like,
Yeah,
we've got the
it's
solution, we're gonna fix it, this is how it's gonna be, like that's just as bad. Usually the solution like that is as
Yeah,
bad as
because
the
we don't.
problem, right?
If you let's be honest, if you don't come out, I mean, I sent you a message. It was funny. I sent you a message a couple weeks ago. I do the OC podcast where
Mhm.
my friend Kenzie and I we've been watching each episode back
Yeah.
and review it each and every week. And I reached out to you a couple weeks ago and said something about coming on the show and talking about it.
Yeah.
And then I saw that you came out, and I was like, you know what? I don't necessarily agree with everything she's
Yeah.
saying. She's saying some good things, saying some different
Yeah.
things that are from. But I would love
Yeah.
to have the
Yes.
conversation, right?
Yes.
So if you
Yes.
don't
Yes.
come out and say that, we
Yes.
don't have this
We
conversation right
don't.
now, right?
We don't. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And then there's like the lone person here or there who comes out saying something that seems like it's so opposite of what everyone else is saying. It's so easy to be like, "Wow, you're crazy." Next. You know what I mean? So I
for sure,
really appreciate you taking the time to do this with me.
absolutely,
This is the example that I hope people pick up pick up on.
absolutely, I absolutely agree 100%. So like I guess just a few more quick questions for you to
Yeah.
go. What have you watched lately that's been good?
What have I watched lately? Oh, I watched this awesome show called On My Block. It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
That was before I canceled Netflix because of cuties. So, um, but yeah, so On My Block and American Housewife. What else? Oh, the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
She's hilarious.
Oh, she's so funny. Oh my
She's really
God.
funny.
That
Absolutely.
show. And you know what I like about them is they're not very PC. It's so good, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's funny and stuff like you have to be able to. I think back of like the Michael Scotts of the days, right? You know what I mean? You have The
Yes.
Office.
Yeah. Yeah.
He that wouldn't have worked now, right? You know what I
Right.
mean?
No
Like
way.
his
No
his
way.
personality wouldn't have worked now.
Yeah.
Also, want to touch base real quick. I do know you had a new movie come out at the beginning of the month, right? You were
Oh
in
yeah.
the second with
Yes. Yes.
Ryan Philippe, right?
Yes.
What was that
Yeah.
like?
It was nice. I was actually offered the movie because I had worked with the director a number of times, a good friend of mine, and it was sort of last minute thing. And of course I was like, sure, yeah, that sounds awesome. Yeah, that's what it was like.
Absolutely. Do you have anything fun coming out soon? Anything that you want to promote? Anything that you want to?
No, no. Thank you so much though. This is really the platform I'm, speaking out on. I like I said this before, I said it again. This is really a kamikaze on my end. I have no intention of really like oddly enough, everyone's like when I first came out, they're like, you're gonna get canceled and it's like I don't subscribe to that theory. But the weird thing that has happened is yesterday I've already had like 5 offers on projects. So I'm that but that's not that's great and I'm open to it and I'm really grateful for it. But more than anything, if we don't have the freedom of speech, we have nothing. So
Absolutely. I mean, if that's the thing, again, you don't have to agree with somebody's opinion, but the cancel culture has really
yeah,
it's terrible anymore. You
yeah,
know, it is.
absolutely.
People can change. People can have difference
Oh
of opinions,
no.
and still
Yes,
we can still work
yeah.
it.
Absolutely, absolutely.